Hi, welcome to Uncork Your Mind. This is Debbie Giaquindo, the Hudson Valley Wine Goddess. And in this edition, it's kind of something special. I got full permission from Madeira to reproduce this seminar that I went to. It's all about Madeira wines with Bruno Almeida, who is a sommelier and the Portuguese wine ambassador. I hope you find this as interesting as I did. Learn a little bit something about a new wine, about Madeira wines, and go out and purchase a bottle.
Welcome to Uncork Your Mind, where we take the intimidation out of wine with your host, Debbie Giaquindo, the Hudson Valley Wine Goddess.
Madeira. Today we're going to be focusing having a little bit of a grip of Colheita Madeira and Frasqueira Madeiras. My name is Bruno Almeida. I was born and raised in Portugal. Came to the US in 2002, started working in hospitality, and since when I found my passion in wine and as a Portuguese wine advocate and on and on. So I'm deeply honored to share my passion with Portuguese wines and mainly with historical wines from the beautiful island of Madeira. So the history of Madeira goes back in time. We go back to the 1500s, 1400s, like six centuries of winemaking. What we're going to explore today is the versatility, the diversity of the region, and the beautiful things that the region has to offer with amazing wines, amazing wines that we're going to taste today. Some of these wines, in the meantime, we have, as you noticed, we have the producers. Some winemakers are present. We'll try to go as smooth and fast as we can, but if you have any questions, please feel free always to ask at the tables outside, as we have a lot of great winemakers that can explain a little more into detail while we taste these wines. So we're going to focus in Colheita. So like one of the things I realized during the pandemic, doing lives and doing Zoom this, Zoom that, was the fact that pronunciation of Portuguese words, a lot of times it's not the easiest thing. So we say this colheitas, like a little, think of it like cosecha, like a cosecha in Spanish. So colheitas basically refers to the harvest. It's the harvest, the year of the harvest. Then we have the frasqueiras. Colheitas and frasqueiras, premium expressions of Madeira. Both are produced from grapes from a single harvest. But in the meantime, the difference between the two of them will be, we're going to learn a little more on this exclusive seminar from 78 to 2009. In the meantime, just letting you know, the order of the wines that you have on your table is going to start from the youngest wine all the way to the oldest wine. So not necessarily following the order that you have on your booklet. And we're going to start from the, in the meantime, it will be the 2009, but it will be your first one, just letting you know. So, frasqueira or garrafeira. A lot of times you'll hear the word garrafeira mainly in continental Portugal, but in Madeira you hear about frasqueira. So, frasqueira, it's a reserved reference to the wine with an indication of the vintage of the year, the harvest of that year. When you think about a frasqueira, it needs at least 20 years in oak, being aged in oak. With, in the meantime, a colheita, it's a reserve wine from the vintage year, which needs at least 5 years of aging. So that's going to be basically the difference we're gonna taste in these wines. The aging process, not only that, but the way the vinification process is slightly different. But we're talking about, like, yes, from that same vintage, from that year, but the extension of aging of the wines is going to be very different. And in the meantime, we hear a lot about colheita, mainly coming from the Douro. Different aspect, different laws and regulations from the Douro colheitas, totally different from the colheitas to the Madeiras. Different aging process, totally different wines. In terms of location and geography, Madeira really way closer to Morocco, to Africa than it is to Portugal. Subtropical climate. Here we start to see like how beautiful and how unique and peculiar this beautiful island is in terms of its geography, different expositions. And as you can see, like dramatically from these two in the same island, we're seeing different, the way that it's, the approach from the winds, from the Atlantic winds, from the Gulf winds, different altitudes. So Madeira is very unique and very diverse on that matter. From the wines that we're going to taste today, not only, yes, the sense of terroir, the sense of place, it's really something that a lot of times we want to talk and go deep. And when we think about Madeira, it's definitely one of those places. So here, like, it's a part of the island that you totally start to see like that kind of subtropical, very dense, very unique diversity that you go across the island. Here, totally different. When we think about the south of the island, think a little more like this Funchal. So that's in the southern part, a little warmer, a little sunnier. But the same way that we keep complaining about the New York weather, it's the same way that you feel like when you are in Madeira. You are in the south, you're like, it's sunny, beautiful, then you go to the north, this is really easily going to get a little more rain, a little more damp, in a higher, and a little cooler. So totally different microclimates that the island has to give. As you can see all these beautiful trees that can go back from centuries being brought to the island. When you think about the word Madeira, actually translating means wood. When the first settlers, the first sailors came across the island, they saw a lot of oak, they saw a lot of wood, and they named it after oak, after wood, Madeira. That's what it was named after. As you can see, a lot of trees, very, very fertile. And of course, the long history of Madeira wines linked to many important phases in history worldwide. These are wines that have been shipped and been in the market, mainly with the British market. A lot of relationship being brought through 6 centuries of winemaking. A lot of celebrations, a lot of marks in history by poets, by presidents being celebrating with Madeira wine. And some of these things we're going to touch base about, like the tiny details that really mark how the region, how these wines are so unique and so with a lot of character that makes the difference with a lot of wines, even in the fortified world. When you think about Portugal, yes, you think about Madeira, you think about port. We still have a beautiful region called Muscatel de Setúbal. And all of these regions, it's all about where are you placed, where are the vines, how you age your wines, and how you, your people and the people behind these wines and the people behind these vineyards, they really work these wines and make them so unique. Thinking about the climate and the soils, highly volcanic, a lot of basaltic influenced soils, rich in organic matter and minerals, magnesium, iron, potassium, very low in potassium, and phosphorus, and very, very high in acidity. So natural acidity, that's what you're going to find in these wines. We just did a master class, a seminar. We did a tasting earlier. Some of these wines we can still taste in a main room. And right now we're going to go back to 78, and it's just amazing how this natural acidity that you find in the wines, it's always expressive in many different ways that you're going to taste today. But again, the mountain range mainly in the north, and then that's subtropical kind of climate, mainly predominant in the south, that very Atlantic influence, and then the tropical winds coming from the Gulf that really makes this region so unique. In terms of mountains, as you saw a little bit of good witness in those slides before, we can go way high to 18 or even more than the 1800, 2000 to the 2000 feet, depending where you are in the north, or even in like right in the middle. But there's other areas that are very, very close to the sea level. And all these characteristics, as you can see here, with this called the poios and sucalcos, right here, like it makes so unique. And then you still have vines right over here, so different exposures to sunlight, to the winds. Everything makes this island like from place to place. Either you have to put your jacket, you have to take your jacket, different altitudes, different climates. Continuing with a beautiful landscape. When you think about Portuguese wine, it's still very linked to the farmers and to the wine growers. In continental Portugal, and of course, Madeira is not going to be different. Mainly like in the past years, when the world changed 2 years ago, was a little bit of a challenge for a region like Madeira, since they really depend on the wine growers. So the work of the community, from the producers and the farmers, it's super, super important. And over here, like in the island, we have about 2,000 wine growers, all of them located in very, very, very different aspects and with different techniques that they have in the vineyards. So here we have the latada. Probably you came across some of this if you went to Portugal, mainly to the Vinho Verde region, which they call the ramadas. So basically, we're thinking about farmers that would farm as much as possible and try to maximize all the land they had in the bottom or in between, and trying to plant the vines over the same way that they used to do back in the time in Vinho Verde. They still do it. If you go like to northern Italy, to Veneto, they still use the pergola system as we see here right now. But not only was to maximize, but in the meantime, fog, damp, you need aeration. So that's another reason that you needed to do as well. Over here, the island. So we have a little bit of a grip of where the main varieties are expressed, and you will see like a grape that it's expressing more and more. Tinta Negra has always been here, but it's always been the backbone of Madeira, and it's basically everywhere. But this Verdelho is going to be totally different from this Verdelho, as I mentioned before. Warmer here, damper, and cold. So different plots of the varieties expressing in many different ways. Meaning when you're sourcing your fruit and you're doing like a 5, a 15, or a 10, and you're sourcing your fruit from many different plots and different exposures. Going to the grapes, main grapes. So we start with the Sercial. So the Sercial, very different from the other grape that we have in Portugal called Sercial, but with the C. We in Portugal, just like the Italians, the Greeks, and the Spaniards, we like to make things very easy to understand. So we change from north to south, east to west, to the islands and to the main island. So yes, here we have Sercial. So we're going to start from the driest of the varieties and the style that it's produced from. But Sercial again with the S in the island. If you go to continental Portugal, you might see it called as esganacão, the dog strangler, because the acid is so high that feels like you being strangled. So the farmers decided to call it esganacão in continental Portugal. But here, making beautiful, dry, extremely fresh, very focused, vibrant Madeira. Great on its own, great for food pairing when we think in the terms of food pairings. Of course, acidity is key. In Madeira wines are always that natural acidity, but Sercial definitely is the one that easily can break fat, can go along, very friendly for mixology and for cocktails as well. Moving next, we have Verdelho, different from the Verdelho that you find in continental Portugal. A lot of producers in the Douro Valley, even in the Alentejo, they might name it as Verdelho during the 90s, because of Verdelho being so popular coming out of Spain. Some, because of market, decided to call Verdelho and name it and kind of put it together as Verdelho, and Verdelho being the same variety. They're not the same variety. And this Verdelho coming from Madeira, it's not the same Verdelho from continental Portugal. A lot of times that same Verdelho, if you go to the northern part, it's the Govelho, your Godelho in Spain. And this Verdelho has nothing to do with the Verdeca, Verdicchio, Verdelho, coming from Sicily, totally different variety. Making medium dry wines, beautiful color, it's very elegant. One of my key varieties to express the wines of Madeira, but starts to get like that slightly hint of sweetness, but still very balanced and right in the middle between when you think about your Sercial and the other grape that we're going to talk about with Malvasia. So a great introduction for food and for Madeira. Just a little hint of sweetness, but still very bright and expressing the sense of place that the grapes come from. Next we have Boal, sometimes with the O, sometimes with the U. In continental Portugal, it's named Malvasia Fina, coming like from the Down or the Douro. But again, same variety being planted in different places, not going to be the same character and the same flavor profile and aromatic profile. But here start to go like more towards the sweet approach of Madeira, medium sweet wines. Great color, amber color, more on the fuller, more dense, more structured, a little richer and dense, a little more luscious wines. Till we move to Malvasia, aka Malmsey, a lot of times mentioned as Malmsey or Malvasia Gandia, making sweet wines, full-bodied, very dark, very deep, very aromatic, with a lot of caramel, spice, and honeyed flavors. Then we have Tinta Negra. Tinta Negra is having a great comeback. We're going to taste some Tinta Negras here, and we might have a lot of Tinta Negra to taste in a main room. Tinta Negra in continental Portugal might sit as Boal in Lisbon, Negra Mol in the south, might be of origin coming from the south of Spain. But again, the backbone of Madeira has been producing a lot of great wines. It's been like in terms of like sustainability of the island and sustainability of the farmers, was always because they needed something as farmers to produce and to make their wines and make their living. So Tinta Negra, all these centuries, suffered a little bit because of phylloxera, but in the meantime, after phylloxera was the grape that really made the comeback of Madeira wine. Making from dry to sweet, so again, like you see like how versatile like Tinta Negra can be, producing all kinds of Madeira. You might see now and now, on and on, like even if you go to producers like Justino, if you go to producers like Verdelho, they're making some wines made out of Tinta Negra. Tinta Negra can make white, can be vinified as a white for still wines, as a white, a rosé, and a red. So this is a major, beautiful variety that it's getting a little more of a royalty play into it. Then we have Terrantez. So Terrantez in continental Portugal, meaning in the Douro Valley, it's called Folgazão. Terrantez, nothing to do with Torrentez, totally different varieties, have nothing, there's no link between the two of them, making medium dry to sweet wine, very balanced, very persistent. It's a beautiful variety. In the meantime, there's the two varieties that I've mentioned here that it's worth mentioning. It's Bastardo. I don't know why they call it bastard, that's basically what it means, but it's aka your Trousseau coming from Tujuá, the same variety. So when you think about grapes like Trousseau, like of course like in Portugal, Bastardo, it's one of those Asian varieties that it's the backbone of a lot of varieties and a lot of wines that we drink today. But you can find some Bastardo, very, very minimal quantities of Bastardo still planted. And then still there's a comeback of a very interesting variety, Listrão, which is the Palomino Fino when you go to sherry. It's the same variety that now, mainly like in the Porto Santo, which is a satellite island from Madeira, that it's starting to be replanted and making very, very, very interesting wines. Vinification, like very, very important when it comes down to Madeira. As we mentioned before, the part of what makes the wine so unique, not only the varieties, but then the styles that you want to make. Extra dry when you think about your Sercial, your dry when you think about your Verdelho, medium dry for your Boal, medium sweet, and then sweet you think about your Malvasia. And just to let you know, when in terms of rules and regulations, from 17 to 22% of alcohol, that's normally the gap when it comes down to Madeira wine. Very unique way of making the wines, trying to resemble how the wines came about in the 1400s with the journeys of the sailors and coming across the Ecuador. So trying to resemble that same stage where the barrels were in the ships, coming across the Atlantic, coming across all their travels. Here we have the Estufagem. The Estufagem, here it's, actually I'm going to jump to the next one, because this is actually what the intention of trying to make the style of the wine, with the Canteiro system, by having the wines be in attics and very exposed in very specific exposures of the island. So you can have your Canteiro system aging your casks in attics on like in parts of the winery that you're going to have access to heat, a lot of sun. Just think about sherry, the same thing. Think about when you are in Porto, where the port lodges are, like those lodges and those port houses are faced and exposed in the way that they need the Atlantic in order like to age the wines and make the beautiful wines that Douro has. And the same thing with Madeira. You need the sun exposure for the Canteiro system. Takes a little longer than the Estufagem, which I'm going to go back and explain a little bit. But your Canteiro system is going to be totally different if you are in the north, which is cold and damp, totally different if you are in a warmer part of the south in the island. So totally different houses and styles that this produces in the north. His Canteiro system in his wines are going to be different. Can have more a saline approach, more like a kind of saline, kind of salty spray in the wines. And if you are in the south, they might be a little different because of temperatures. But just going back, here with the Estufagem, so the Estufagem method, you basically have the tank being wrapped with the hot water running and making the process faster than the Canteiro. So basically that's how the Estufagem, it's trying to resemble that Canteiro, but by trying to have that same process being made a little faster. Going back to the ages, we have 5, 10, and again, when you think about a 5 and a 10, the same way with your tawnies, this is an average of wines. It's blended wines trying to resemble a 5-year-old. So it's a blend of different vintages and different wines to make 5, 10, and on and on. Today we're going to taste Colheita and Frasqueiras. Here we have 5 years minimum and 20 years minimum with the date of harvest. With the seal, one of the regions that is being very focused in how to protect and to certify their wines. Definitely Madeira has been on top of certification in making wines that this is Madeira, this is what screams Madeira. Complexity, great longevity. When you think about the word great longevity, these are wines that have been exposed to oxidation. So when we say that the Madeira wines are going to be indestructible, that's a little bit what it kind of means, because exposure to oxidation made the wines be basically indestructible. Thinking about the characteristics and the aromas and flavors of these wines, we mostly think about coffee, toffee, cocoa, caramel, brown sugar, burnt sugar. This, and of course that saline kind of saltiness that normally is marking the wines, but depending on the style, depending on the Baume, depending on how much residual sugar or the style, dry, medium, the wines are going to be very different. But the main characteristics and flavor profiles, they go around these flavor profiles. And of course, with aging in oxidative nuances, the wines are going to be different. Pairings, sweet in sweet for me doesn't make a lot of sense. And Madeira wines are very diverse, coming from the Sercial. We just did early today. We did Sercial with the range of wines that are mainly coming from Sercial and Verdelho. They don't necessarily have to go with sweetness, the high acidity, complexity of these wines that some of these wines you can do with duck, with some hunt, with some game. There's a lot of possibilities in terms of pairing. Thinking about the aspect of Madeira in hospitality, in your store, at home, yes, the wines are indestructible, because once you open that bottle, there's great odds the bottle is going to have a longer shelf life once it's open. It's more efficient in terms of service once the bottle is open for a Corvan system, but even just by the glass, it's a great wine to work with. Labeling, minimum 3 years, but indication if it's dry or sweet, and then the blend, as we mentioned before, 5 till 50 years. Harvest or year for a Colheita, 5 years minimum. Soleras, you still find a few Soleras, but that's very, very minimal Soleras being made in Madeira. But back in the time, yes, they used to make a lot of some Solera. And then the Frasqueira, 20 years of aging minimum. So let's taste. Let's start with the first wine. Again, so the first one will be your 2009 Bourbon. So we're going to start from the youngest to the oldest. Your Bourbon is going to be a wine number 6.
Which wine?
The first wine is going to be wine number 6.
Wine number 6.
What is it? What's the like?
2009. So wine number 6 is actually your first wine. These producers are, again, they're available pouring other wines in the main room. We have the winemaker here, Ricardo Diogo, great family, so they basically start like in the middle, like the 1946, in the middle of the 1900s. And they brought a lot of innovation, a different take. They're making a different styles of Madeira, even like in the still wines too, as I mentioned before, but making like, trying to push a little bit more the possibilities, the range of possibilities that Madeira has to offer. They're doing a great job on that. And with this, we have, this is Colheita, so 2009. Harvested in 2009, I think it was bottled around 2020, actually, 2021. The beautiful zestiness, great citrus, very focused. A little spice kick at the end, but vibrant. That's what I would expect, like the wines from Barbaito being very fresh, very vibrant. And slight burnt caramel a little bit with these wines. But when I think about Barbaito wines, I think a lot about like freshness, power, but power in the term of like very vigorous, very energetic, I should say. But Ricardo Freitas is a well of knowledge. He's going to be in the room. But he's leaving a great legacy, and he's really respecting the tradition of his family with the wines coming from Barbaito. When you think about Barbaito, you will think...
I'm so sorry. Just to say, because people are drinking the last one, they are not drinking the first one. No, just to say for the people, you should drink the first one. No. Because there are people there that are drinking the last one.
I'm sorry. My bad. It's wine number one.
What?
Wait.
I apologize. You're drinking wine. Barbaito is wine number one. I apologize.
Sorry.
What's the which bottle?
You are drinking this one. This one is the first. No, this is not in the correct order.
That's why I was saying 2009. That's the wine that we're drinking.
But then it becomes it's wine.
It's wine number one.
Yes.
It's wine number one. Thank you for addressing that.
So,
we apologize. Sorry. So wine number one, it's 2009 Barbaito. And Barbaito, they make the wines of the Rare Wine Company. On the booklet, it's basically mentioning by alphabetic order, but wine number one, it's going to be your Barbaito 2009. Now we're going to go with H.M. Borges, with the Borges family, starting their production in 1877 with Henrique Muniz Borges, now in the hands of the next generation. The Borges family makes a lot of, like, when I think about like the classic style of Madeira. Here we're going to have a Tinta Negra 2005, great expression of Tinta Negra that Borges has been doing, and this will be a Colheita.
Is that wine number two?
This is wine number two.
How could you show me the label?
Colheita 2005. And this is the side of the sweet profile, that kind of dense, a little richer caramel that Tinta Negra has always the possibility to show and to showcase with these wines. It's going to be aged in French, in both French and American oak, with the Canteiro system that I explained before. And this kind of wines, like it's very important when you think about Madeira. Not only the glass, I like this kind of glass when it comes down to Madeira. We can, with such aromatic and complex wines, we always have the chance to taste and have all the characteristics of the wine. Wines like a glass like this, or an AP glass, I think they're fundamental, and then of course your temperature. When you think about like extra dry to dry Madeira, think about like 55, 56, 57 tops. When you start to go a little moving like to your medium, your medium rich and the rich Madeiras go a little bit more towards like the 60, like 61, a little bit, just a little. But great fig kind of tone, nuance kind of tone, dates, like marmalade, quince. Slight kick of spice, but this is all about integration of fruit, but very vibrant, but I like kind of the quince, kind of marmalade. One of those wines that, thinking about kind of foie gras, kind of terrines, depending on the fruit that you have on the side. If it's quince, if it's rhubarb, strawberry, what kind of fruit that you have for the foie gras, but the acidity and the volume and the texture of the wine, I think it's great with dishes, for instance, like that. You have any questions on the wine so far? Any comments? Good. Now we're going to go with Henriques and Henriques, which we have the great Humberto, the winemaker, is present here with us today. Great history coming from the 1850s. They are located in Câmara de Lobos, in the southern part of the island. The winemaker, Humberto, is a great well of knowledge. He really breaks down very, very easily the whole history of Madeira and the styles of Madeira. And Henriques, freshness. It's all about keeping the freshness of the wines and really respecting where the vines are coming from, and great expression of Madeira. So here we are with wine number 3.
Which bottle is it, please? Excuse me. Which bottle?
It's in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is going to be wine number 3. And here we have Colheita 2001. It's very interesting to see like the residual sugar being 110. I would never say this would be 110, going a little specific on that matter, but I would say something a little different if I didn't know it was 110 in terms of grams of residual sugar. That's great for cheeses. When I think about this wine, like cheeses, like has been mentioned, cheddar, some pecorino and gruyere, but a little great oxidative kind of tone to it, but very elegant, and again the freshness that always Humberto brings to these wines. You can play this wine with a little sweets as well, of course, like you can do some dark chocolate, but again that salty approach on dark chocolate, salted caramel, salted chocolate, something like that I think really unifies with a wine, but still very luscious and deep and dense, but great freshness to the wine. Next we're going to go with Justinos, which the winemaker João is here with us too. This will be wine number 4. Through Broadbent. Michael Broadbent being a great fan of Madeira and everything Portugal, doing a great partnership with Justinos and these wines. Here we have a sweet, this is a sweet 99 Colheita. So far we've been having Colheitas. One thing that I would like to mention that this is 100% Tinta Negra. We just had a Tinta Negra before, and look how different and diverse, different styles, different years of course, but just the interpretation that it's been showed from this Tinta Negra, very, very different from the Tinta Negra that we tasted earlier. It's great. If you want to retaste, go back to wine number 2. this wine and how Tinta Negra really goes differently. Yes, Ms. Conley.
How frequent is the maceration of the skin versus the maceration with the skin? How frequent do you do it versus more direct press?
It's getting more popular and popular to get more extraction with the skins. I think Verdelho, for instance, I think they work a little bit on that part to work with skin maceration. You're starting to see that technique being done more and more. But again, it depends on your vintage and the grape and where they're located. But you're starting to see more skin maceration. Any comments on wine number 4? I just like the toffee, coffee, praline, slightly touch of marzipan. It's a little bready, toasty. Full spice cake. As just checks the boxes on everything that they want in the sweeter style of Tinta Negra like this, but kind of molassy. Very good. Delicious. And all these wines are available in the US, by the way.
What's the price range?
Price range, something that I can go back to you. Price range, I'm not very sure, I cannot. And we're going to go to the Olivators, very classic, you know, pivotal, quintessential family in Madeira, with the sons, with Felipe now being in charge of the company, family-owned company. And here we have, now we're going to the sweet stuff, and we're going to have a Frasqueira. So here we have at least 20 years of aging. This is going to be totally different from what we tasted before. This is a Malvasia in 1990. It was bottled in 2018.
Does it sit in the bottle for a while before it's released?
Yes, depending. This is 5. This is number 5, yes.
Is there any laws that regulate how long they have to sit in the bottle?
Did they sit in the bottle? No. It's just the aging. Just the nose just makes a total difference when you taste the Frasqueira. Like there's so much things going on in the nose. But that slight oxidative tone, but a little bit of like eucalyptus, like forest floor, a little slightly mushroomy. Just the color of it starting to go to that kind of greenish color around it that makes it. But 90, and look how amazing, how impeccable the acidity on this wine it is. It's just remarkable how these wines continuously have this persistent acidity. Even with the Frasqueira being spending so much time, a lot of times like some Frasqueiras can go more on the oxidative kind of tone, but this is very mild, very elegant approach to the Frasqueira, which normally the Olivators have always that classic, very Madeira, classic style in terms of like great combo of oxidative, saline, fruit, and freshness and acidity. And last but not the least, for wine number 6, we're going to go all the way to 1978. And this is Blendies from the Madeira Wine Company. As you can see, Madeira Wine Company has 3 brands within them, with Blendies, Costa Gordon, with Essential Family, the Gordon family in Madeira, and of course with Miles. Miles, when you think about Madeira and all the possibilities, we're going to have a masterclass at 3 o'clock about mixology in Madeira, and Miles is very driven towards mixology, really expressing like how their style of Madeira with Miles goes really well in cocktails, and the brand is very focused in a more slightly, I would say, modern, more a younger kind of approach for Madeira, and of course with mixology. So here on the 78, this is basically It's not noted, it's not written as a Frasqueira, but it's legally as a Frasqueira. Can be named as a Frasqueira with the time that it spent in a Canteiro system. What I like about the attack in the mouth, it's exactly that, like that sweet, super soft attack, like vibrant attack that brings to the note. A little great, like kind of old spice, mild heat that brings to the table, but very focused and slightly ashy. But it's just remarkable. 78, this is what, 44 years old, and impeccable. This wine is totally shining, and not necessarily going, again, with desserts, but this screams just like more of the blue kind of cheeses, soft kind of cheeses. It's a beautiful wine to enjoy on its own, and with many possibilities in terms of pairing, but so much being in this bottle. We can decant some of these wines when it comes down to Frasqueira and some Colheitas. Let's not forget, like some of these wines can, with age, might have a little bit of sediment, but one of the keys, like, as I mentioned, the glass, the temperature, and of course the storing of the wines. Because of that high acidity, the corks easily can start to tear and can start like to break. So always store your Madeiras upright because of acidity. Always upright. It's key in order like to maintain that beautiful bottle that you have of a Frasqueira, any Madeira wines that you have with you. Any questions about the wines? Anything that you'd like to revisit about the wines we just tasted before we finish? Yes.
Are these wines organic?
Organic. That's very difficult, to be honest to you. Trying to have organic farming in an island like Madeira with the fog, damp, coastal regions, and mainly like in islands, it's very, very difficult to have practices as much as possible to do that. Like it's not easy to work with organic farming. You need to control your vines and protect the vines as much as possible. Are they conscious more and more and more? Totally are. Totally are. And another thing that I think it's very important about Madeira, it's about, like as I mentioned before, the sustainability of the farmers. More and more, like Madeira, it's a beautiful destination. It's getting a lot of attention in terms of commercial space. A lot of these growers and farmers are losing land to hotels, to big other scenarios. So it's important for the producers, important for us. It's really important for the next generations to continue with these traditions, because otherwise, it's some vineyards can be like as small as this. Some wine growers can have just a small plot like this room, and on and on. Yes.
Do you have the residual sugars on the last two?
On the last two, I can go back. On the blendies, what? 110, 180, 18, sorry. I don't have information about the Oliveiras, but I'll try to get to you the information on this one about the residual sugar. But it's fairly high. It's rich, dense. It's definitely on the high side. But thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, please let me know. But in the meantime, we have great minds, brilliant minds in the main room. Thank you again, and please drink more Madeira.
I hope you learned a little bit about Madeira. I actually didn't have any idea. To me, it reminds me a little bit of a sherry, and from the course that I went through with sherry and how the food pairings, that's very, very similar. The Madeira wines that I tasted at this wine tasting were incredible. I tasted some as old as 1969, and it was bottled just for this seminar because the bottling date was on the bottle. It was just a real eye-opener on a new kind of wine that I really wasn't familiar with. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you go out and buy a bottle of Madeira. Try it with some food. Try it just as an aperitif, and let me know what you think. I'm Debbie Giaquindo. I'm the Hudson Valley Wine Goddess. I can be reached at debbie@hudsonvalleywinegoddess.com. My website is hudsonvalleywinegoddess.com. Twitter, I'm HV Wine Goddess. And on Instagram, I'm HV Wine Goddess. And on Facebook, I'm Hudson Valley Wine Goddess. Have a fantastic day.